But guys, tonight we're opening up into a new series. Talking about faith in the real world. What does it look like? How do we see it? How do we use it? Right? And may just be easier. Hey, Trent, can you bring me the black mic? I appreciate that. Thank you, sir. May just be easier. But guys, tonight, the title of my message is Trusting God When Life Feels Uncertain. Trusting God when life feels uncertain. Right? Life is full of ups and downs. Right? How many of you guys have had a life that's been just smooth sailing? Like you've had no roller coasters, you've had no extremely good days, extremely bad days, it's just been monotone. Anybody? No? Right? Because that's what life is full. Ups and downs all the time. It can feel like everything is changing super fast. There it is. Woo! Goodness, it's better. I was about to lose my mind a little bit. Not on them, but because my voice is being weird. But life is changing. Right? Some of you guys are now seniors, going to your last year of high school. It's crazy, right? And you're like, oh, next step, college, real life. Uh-oh. Right? Some of y'all just got into 6th grade, started into middle school. Some of y'all moving into 8th grade. And you're like, ooh, I'm the big dog on campus, right? Some of y'all may just moved into 9th grade. And you went from being the big dog on campus to freshman and, puny. Not really puny. But man, life is changing fast. Friendships shift. School pressure amounts. Families face challenges. There's a lot of things that happen. Right? Life is full of uncertainties. There's moments that we have can trigger fear, anxiety, confusion. But uncertainty doesn't have to control you. When you begin to learn to trust God and trust Him deeply, you find yourself a steady foundation that's unshakable. I want to open up here in Proverbs chapter 3, verses 5 through 6. It says, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek His will in all that you do, and He will show you which path to take. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. What this shows us, if we think about it for just a second, is that if we lean into God, to say for a moment, whatever challenge you're facing. And you guys hear a lot of similarities to this when I'm talking about when we just talked about cycles, right? How we get caught in the same thing, stuck in the same thing, and we don't know how to get out of it. We talked about freedom through wisdom and freedom through faith. When you trust in God and you begin to lean into Him, right? It's like this. How many of you guys have done a group project before? Raise your hand. Group project in school, right? A lot of times, typically, there's multiple different types of people. You usually have one person in the group that does all the work. You have the other 6 of them that don't do anything, right? That's typically how it goes. But, theoretically, in a group project, you're meant to do equal parts in that project. You have a presentation you have to make, okay? So somebody does 3 slides, somebody else does 3 slides, somebody else does the other 3 slides. Then you talk about your slides. Or it's a lab project, or whatever it may be, right? But in a group project, what you're doing is at the end of the day, that grade you get on it is going to be on your grade book, your report card. That's what's going to show. So if you're in the group, if I'm in a group with Johnny and Ty, right? And, Ty's not going to do anything. I'm not going to do anything, but Johnny's going to do it all, right? So I'm putting all my faith in Johnny. So you know what, Johnny? This is a group project we're all supposed to do, but you got it. Johnny has all this work he has to do. We end up getting a bad grade on it. Well, now I'm upset. Because Johnny got us at 50% when he was supposed to do it all, right? But what did I do in that situation? I did nothing for myself. What did Ty do? He did nothing for himself, right? So it's kind of a poor example in a sense, when I used it saying about getting a bad grade, right? But if Johnny got a great grade, he got his 100%, ooh, that's all she wrote. I'm happy. Ty's happy. Johnny's probably not as happy because he had to do all the work. And then we get a free ride. But when we look at this verse here in Proverbs, when it's saying, trust in the Lord with all your heart, what he's saying to you, saying, listen, I know it's a group project, but I got you. Trust me. You're going to get 100. It's not going to be like Johnny. Johnny probably, you know what, Johnny, you get like an 85 solid, minimum. 85 to 100 every single time. I believe it, right? I believe it. When things don't make sense on our own, when the future looks a little foggy, right? How many of you guys have drove to school in the morning? Not drove. Some of y'all probably drove. Rode with your parents. In the morning, it gets really foggy, right? Can't really see. It's hard to see a little bit. You can't always see 2 miles out in front of you. You only can see maybe, 100 feet. You don't really know what's going to happen. So even in the midst of our situation, sometimes we can't see past that fog. Can't see past tomorrow. Can't see past 20 minutes from now, right? But God's saying here, listen, lean into me a little bit. It's a group project. I already told you I got all the answers. You got to trust me. You got to trust me. I want to read you all the story real quick. Not real quick. It's going to be mostly quick, right? How many of you guys have heard the story where Jesus walks on water? How many of you heard of it? Right? If you haven't, or you want to learn more about it, I invite you guys in the fall when we start Youth Sunday School, because we talked about this. Farron and I did in depth. Jesus walking on water. Usually starts at 8:45. I know some of y'all don't even wake up at that time during the summer. But it's not during the summer, we're taking a break. But in the fall, when school starts back up, you want to learn more, come to Youth Sunday School. But we're going to start here in Matthew chapter 14, verses 22 through 23. It says, immediately after this, Jesus insisted that his disciples go back into the boat and cross the other side of the lake. While he sent people home, and after sending them home, he went up into the hills by himself to pray. Night fell while he was there alone. Next verse, 24 to 26. It says, meanwhile, the disciples were in trouble far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. About 3 o'clock in the morning, Jesus came towards them, walking on water. When the disciples saw him walking on the water, they were terrified in fear, and they cried out. What'd they say? It's a ghost! Ah! Right? They probably said it just like that. So when we look at this and think about it, how many of you guys have been on a boat? Right? A few of you guys. Some. How many of you guys have been on a boat when there's rough water? Some? Yeah? Right? It's a little scary. It's a little dicey. You're kind of like, ooh, I'm used to solid land that doesn't really move. And then I'm on this piece of metal in the middle of the ocean, in the middle of the lake, that's somehow keeping me afloat, right? It can be a little nerve-wracking when you're sitting there on it and you're like, I don't know if this is going to flip over or not. I have no idea, right? But in the middle of the situation, these disciples were facing a storm, a bad one at that. And they didn't have no big cruise ships, right? They didn't have no big, ginormous boats like we do today. They had smaller boats. Boats about the size that we have today. Some of the smaller ones, some of your families may have one, maybe you've been on one, right? But the water was moving like crazy. So you got 12 dudes, more than that, but 12 dudes minimum in this boat with waves that are going crazy. And you're trying to get from here all the way over to the other side, and you're like, I don't know if that's going to happen. Because I see what's around me. I see these 10, 12-foot waves. I don't know if I'm going to make it out on the other side. So as they're sitting in their boat, as they're unsure, I don't know how many of you guys have maybe woken up in the middle of the night in your room. When I was in college, I used to put my sweatshirt on my chair that sat next to my desk. So it usually happened in the fall, like in the fall when it started getting cooler. And so when I first started putting it on my chair, the first couple nights I'd wake up at about 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd see something standing about this tall with a hoodie on it, looked like a dude in the middle of my dorm. I tell you what, I've never jumped out of bed in my entire life, and I don't get up in the mornings to save my life, right? My alarm goes off at 7:30, it's 7:35. Then it's 7:40. Then it's 7:45. Then it's 7:50, right? And then eventually, I somehow wake up. But I've never been up that fast when I think there's some random guy standing in the middle of my room, right? So you can't imagine these disciples. They're looking in the middle of the storm, 10-plus foot waves, and they see Madeline walking right in the middle. Be a little weird. You'd be like, wait a minute. That ain't supposed to happen. They cry, it's a ghost. Matthew chapter 14, verse 27. It says, but Jesus spoke to them at once. He said, don't be afraid. He said, take courage, I am here. Then Peter called to him, said, Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you, walking on the water. Yes, come, Jesus said. So Peter went over to the side of the boat, and he walked on the water towards Jesus. Now I want to point something out here. Something significant when looking at this. How many of you guys like to fish? I love to fish, right? I like fishing. Peter was a fisherman. Where he followed Jesus, that's what he did. He'd go out on his boats, throw his nets out, catch a lot of fish, right? That's what he did for, I don't know exactly how many years, but quite a few years. As you guys begin to get into work, or maybe you have a hobby, or maybe you have a sport that you've done for years, right? Usually, as you put years and years of work into it, you kind of know almost everything about it. You start to learn it, you start to live and breathe it, you start to kind of know the ins and outs. So we have Peter. He's been a fisherman. He's lived on a boat. He's lived in the water. He knows how water reacts. He knows that it's not possible for somebody to just go walk on water. But what's significant to me is that Peter's the one that called out to Jesus and said, if it's really you, tell me to come walk on the water towards you. So you have a man who knows his situation, who knows what would happen if he's probably fallen out of the boat quite a few times. He knows that he ain't going to walk on water or land on it. He's going to be sinking. A man who's lived around water, who knows how it does, what it reacts. He knows his past. But he's looking at Jesus and he's saying, you know what? God, if it's really you, tell me to do it. Tell me to do it. So in our walk and in our lives, it can be so hard to see outside of our circumstances. The storm we're in, the position we're in, the things that we're going through, right? So sometimes we feel like we can't go anywhere. Going back to the cycles, right? We feel like we're stuck. I feel like we've been here, we've done this, we know where we've been, we know how to do it. There's no way I should be able to walk on this water, Jesus, but if it really is you, I'm going to take a step out. What Peter asked Jesus to do was the impossible. Peter knew he couldn't walk on water. It's not physically possible. It's not naturally possible. If I was here to get a bucket of water, if we filled up our baptismal, right, and I had every single one of y'all line up, try to walk on that water, know what y'all gonna do? It's not physically possible. So sometimes in our lives, what we need to do is ask God for the impossible. That through him, nothing is impossible, right? But ask him for it. Matthew chapter 14, verse 30. It says, but when he saw the strong winds, this is Peter, and the waves, he was terrified. He began to sink, and he said, save me, Lord, he shouted. So Peter stepped out of the boat, and he walked on water. He did the impossible. And his natural mind, who's a fisherman, who's lived around water, who's grew up with it, been with it most of his life. Does it kind of sound like some of y'all's situations? Thoughts that you have, things that you deal with. It's been with me my whole life. I've had it this whole time. Why can't I shouldn't be able to just get rid of it now. But when we look in this, what did Peter begin to look at when he started to sink? What did he look at? Huh? He didn't look at, he looked at the Lord and he walked on water. But what does it say here in this verse? What did he look at? The strong wind and the what? The waves. I opened up in Proverbs chapter 3 when it said, trust in the Lord with all your heart and tell you which path to take. When Peter leaned into God and said, God, if it's really you, tell me to walk on water and let me do the impossible. And Jesus said, do it. Bet. Try me. Walk on water. So Peter stepped out of the boat, walked on water. Then the moment he looked at what was surrounding him, those feelings of anxiety, the worries that you have, the things you deal with, the things you have at home. When Peter set his eyes on what was surrounding him, he began to sink. And he cried out, Lord, save me. Matthew chapter 14, verses 31 through 33. This is a part I love. Very first part of this verse. It says, Jesus what? Immediately reached out and grabbed him. He said to Peter, he said, you have so little faith. Jesus said, why did you doubt me? When they climbed back into the boat, the wind stopped. The disciples worshiped him and said, you really are the Son of God. Jesus didn't wait a few moments. Pastor Darren, you can go ahead and come back up. Jesus didn't wait a few moments, a few weeks, a few years. He reached out to him immediately. Jesus looked at Peter, and I think it's kind of funny. I think Jesus had a sense of humor a little bit. As Farron and I were walking through his life story, there's some quirky remarks that he made. So when he says, you have so little faith, I'm sure it wasn't, oh, you have so little faith. Right? I'm sure Jesus had a little bit of twang to it, like, you have so little faith, right? A little bit of sarcasm in it, a little bit of really, dude. Like, I just told you you could do it, and then you doubt me still kind of situation, right? Because when you find out a lot, as in not in my notes, this isn't even on it, and Farron and I were looking at Jesus' ministry, there's a lot of times what people failed because they didn't trust God to do what he said he would do. And then Jesus, when they come to Jesus and like, God, it didn't happen, Jesus is kind of like, you didn't do what I told you to do. If you just would have followed through with it, it would have happened. Sorry, it's a side note. Peter asked Jesus to do the impossible. Jesus called out to Peter and told him, all right, let's do it. Jesus saw the situation that Peter was in. Jesus didn't look at Peter and say, oh, his life is all perfect put together. He knew right where he was. He didn't tell Peter, hey, wait till the waters calm down a little bit, then you can come try walking out on the water. Peter saw the situation. He knew what circumstances were surrounding him. And he still told Peter, let's do it. Let's do the impossible. So my challenge to you guys, the point I have tonight, is to ask God to do the impossible. When you don't think it can be done, when it seems like there's no way that you'll be able to do it, don't let the circumstances surrounding life dictate what happens. Peter began to sink in the water when he saw what was around him. It can be super difficult to not see your circumstances, to see what's surrounding you, not start to worry, get anxious. But the thing is God's sitting here telling you, don't worry. I have you. Trust me. I'll show you which path to take. I promise you, He can do the impossible. When life feels uncertain, when you feel like you don't know what's going to happen, set your focus on God. Ask Him for the impossible. Saying, God, I know you can do it. Even though it naturally, physically doesn't make sense. That's where God comes in and says, you know what? I'm about to rock your world. You don't think you can break out of it? I promise you, you can.